I refused to let my disabled brother propose at my wedding, so my family disowned me. My brother Preston was born with cerebral palsy and walked with a limp, but he lived on his own and had a good job. Still, my parents always treated him like he was made of glass and made me give up everything for him because his life was so much harder than mine. They made me let him blow out my candles on my 8th birthday and forced me to stop my graduation party speech so he could announce his C+ report card to everyone. When I told them I proposed to my girlfriend Naomi and they smiled for the first time in years, I actually thought maybe my wedding would at least be mine. But then 3 days later, my parents called and said I needed to come over immediately. When I walked into their living room, Preston was sitting there with a little velvet box on the coffee table. My mom had tears in her eyes before anyone even spoke. "I want to propose to Madison at your wedding reception," Preston said with this huge grin on his face. That's when my dad put his hand on Preston's shoulder and looked at me saying it was a perfect solution and he deserved this moment. My stomach dropped, but the guilt was already creeping in. My mom wiped her eyes and talked about how much this would mean to him. I felt my mouth moving before my brain caught up agreeing to it. Preston jumped up and hugged me, knowing I'd understand. I drove home feeling like I'd just signed away my wedding day. The next morning, Preston called our DJ without even asking me. He wanted to approve all the music to set the mood for his big moment. By lunch, he told my best man that he wouldn't be giving a speech anymore because Preston needed that time slot. 2 days later, Naomi came home crying. Preston had changed our first dance song from 4 minutes to 90 seconds because he said people would get bored before his proposal. The next week, everything spiraled out of control. Preston moved my college friends to the back tables because he needed the front ones for proposal staging. Then he canceled our live band and hired his own photographer specifically for his proposal. My parents backed every single decision. When I tried to argue, my mom would remind me this was harder for him. Things got even worse when Naomi found out Preston had been calling her family. He told her elderly grandparents they shouldn't come because too many old people would make his proposal awkward. She locked herself in our bedroom and sobbed for an hour. After that, Preston booked our rehearsal dinner restaurant for what he called his proposal planning meeting with his friends. He demanded our wedding vows be under 2 minutes each because he didn't want to tire out the audience before his moment. He even tried to get the minister to mention his upcoming proposal during the ceremony. My parents called daily to make sure I was being supportive. They reminded me how Preston's disability made everything harder and how I should be grateful my life was so easy. The breaking point came when Preston told Naomi we needed to cut her father-daughter dance, saying 2 slow songs before his proposal would kill the energy. Naomi looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Is this even our wedding anymore? That night I called Preston and told him he couldn't propose at our wedding. The words felt strange coming out of my mouth after years of always saying yes. He went silent, then started yelling about how selfish I was. I hung up and called my parents to explain. They seemed disappointed, but my mom finally said they understood. For 3 beautiful weeks, we actually planned our own wedding. Naomi started smiling again when she picked out flowers. The venue coordinator even mentioned how much more relaxed we seemed. We tasted cakes and chose decorations, and it felt like our day again. I honestly believed the worst was behind us. Then my parents showed up at our apartment unannounced. My dad's face was stone cold and my mom wouldn't make eye contact. I knew something was very wrong. "We've paid double to book out your venue completely. We're giving it to Preston for his proposal party instead," my dad said. That's when Preston walked in behind them on cue saying, "I always put myself first and everything's always been easier for me." My mom finally looked at me. "We're done supporting someone so selfish. Don't contact us again." They left us standing there in shock. The venue confirmed it when we called. My parents' deposit was twice ours and the venue was taking their money. Our wedding was canceled. Naomi cried herself to sleep that night while I stared at the ceiling feeling completely defeated. But then 2 days later, the venue called back. The owner said they were refusing my parents' request and returning their money. "We don't do business with people who try to sabotage their own child's wedding," she said. Our wedding day was perfect until my parents and Preston tried to force their way in during the ceremony. Security stopped them at the door and called the police when they wouldn't leave. I watched through the window as officers put my parents and brother in handcuffs for trespassing. I went back inside to my wedding and 40 minutes later I said, "I do" to Naomi and to finally owning my own life.